remembered was I felt as though I was on an invisible elevator going up and into this craft. Then I was brought into this very clinical looking room where I was undressed, and I sat on this table, and there might have been about 4 creatures there, and they began to examine me.
One of the things about this subject is if you see something dramatic or encounter it somewhere or other, maybe through reading or whatever, one of the things is that you instantly realize if this is true, it's the biggest event in human history. If there is, in fact, some non-human intelligence in using some kind of non-human technology, suddenly interacting with us, it's the biggest event in human history. I can't imagine encountering this and not feeling dramatically moved and disposed to look into it.
According to those who investigated this abduction, there were multiple witnesses who actually saw a UFO hovering.
That saw the craft hovering over her apartment building. When Bud shows the drawings from the different witnesses, it's astounding, and that's what we need to bring across to the public, is that these people aren't just abducted all by themselves in the middle of a field somewhere. This can happen anywhere.
I have looked into probably about 620 separate individuals, and I've done numerous sessions with some of those people. So in a number of those cases, I've worked through maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, 10 abduction experiences. I've heard from another, well, perhaps 4,000 people by letter, telephone, face-to-face, descriptions that they were giving me, but I didn't have a chance to follow them up. But the numbers are extraordinary.
What people say is that they're taken up out of their room, whether they're on their couch or in their kitchen or wherever they are, and oftentimes they're floated directly through a closed window. And I've asked them, are you sure this window was closed? Didn't you open it, or didn't they open it, or did it open by themselves? And the abductees are clear, no, it's absolutely closed. Now, if this were psychological, they would say, well, of course it was open. There would be no problem then. But they look up at me and they say, has anybody else ever reported that, floating through a closed window, not knowing that absolutely everybody reports that.
What would you think if it hadn't have happened to you, and you know, in this neighbourhood with the people you know, you'd been told that it happened to someone else? What would you have thought? What would your action be?
I probably would not have believed it. I'd be very skeptical. And I expect most people to feel that way about my case. But I know what happened to me.
One of the major issues that skeptics have with the validity of Linda Cortile's abduction experience, and the whole phenomena in general, was the use of hypnosis to unlock her memory of the event.
Okay.
Critics argue that this allows for the manipulation of the victim, and in some cases, the actual creation of a whole abduction experience.
Critical stage at this moment. All we're trying to do is build a picture exactly around. Right, take a couple of deep breaths for me, that's all.
Imagine someone has had a deeply traumatic sleep paralysis experience. Imagine they woke up in the night, couldn't move, couldn't scream, felt creepy crawly fingers on them, had an awful sense there's somebody in the room, heard buzzing and humming noises, and then later on they woke up and it's all gone. What are they going to think? Now imagine that they go to a hypnotherapist who regresses them and says, you can remember you're lying in bed, the buzzing noise is there, you can remember. Now we know that hypnosis encourages fantasy, and they will fantasize. And they will probably fantasize about aliens, particularly if that particular hypnotherapist is known for doing alien abduction regressions. And so this fantasy, they'll know at the time it's a fantasy because you normally do in hypnosis, but it gradually works their way into its memory. And you've only got to do that a few times before your memory has become vivid and rich and absolutely convincing, and you are sure that you were abducted. And in fact, you weren't.
I'm inside a spaceship. The star charts all on the walls all the way around.
Hypnosis, of course, has been the whipping boy of the skeptics because it's used very frequently in this. Hypnosis can very, very easily be misused. If a very clever interrogator can lead somebody in normal conversation, which we know if you watch lawyers in action, but just in normal conversation, people can be led, seduced, changed, almost against their will, so that the whole story becomes different. Under hypnosis, it's even easier to do that.
Okay.
I feel ashamed.
What are you ashamed of?
Being frightened.
That's a perfectly natural reaction to anything unusual, out of the ordinary.
Don't understand what's going on.
Now, what we know about the way normal memory works is that the more often you tell a story, the more you are inclined to remember the story you told rather than the original event. And at its most extreme, this can become what's called false memory, where a memory can feel absolutely real, like a memory, and yet have been created by your own telling of the story.
We saw an object that we could not identify. It was just hovering in the sky. It was perfectly round, silver in color, and sometimes the sun would shine on it in such a way that it looked as if there was some blue on the object.
So are abductees really experiencing what they say, or are they making it up? Leah Haley claims she was abducted several times from her home in Gulf Breeze, Florida, and then taken into what she describes as an alien spacecraft. She wrote several books on the subject and now lectures on alien abductions around the world. Although her memories of the event were solely recovered under hypnosis, she maintains that they really did happen to her.
I didn't remember everything about the experience, but I did remember being in a round room that had very bright, intense light, and I was lying on a flat platform on my back, and I remembered aliens standing all around me performing medical experiments on me. They had solid black eyes, 2 little holes for a nose. I couldn't remember a mouth at all. They didn't have any hair, they didn't have any ears, and I remembered that I felt very calm, not afraid at all, but it was like I was paralyzed. I couldn't just get up and move around. It was like a medical subject.
Like many abductees, Leah suffered alienation and derision from her friends and family after she went public. Despite this, she stands by her story and now campaigns for this phenomena to be taken seriously.
I got fired from a job that I loved because I felt that it was important to go public with my story. My older daughter, who is 24 years old, disowned me because I went public with my story. She got married last July. I was not invited to the wedding. I was told by my own child that she never wanted to hear from me again. She never wanted to see me again. As far as she was concerned, I was dead because I had embarrassed the family by talking about my experiences.
Keen to prove that she was telling the truth, she agreed to allow a former FBI profiler, Paul Miner, carry out a detailed polygraph examination on her.
I was a polygraph examiner for the Army up until 1978, and at that time I went over to the FBI and was the chief polygraph examiner for the FBI from 1978 until the end of 1987. when I left and set up my own business, a security firm in Fairfax, Virginia.